Emperor Thalnash had ruled the Galactic Empire for 800 years. He had seen rebellions crushed, civilizations rise and fall, and countless species bow before imperial might. But he had never received reports like the ones piling up on his desk. "Your Majesty," Chancellor Morven said carefully over the communication link, "the situation has become quite complex." "Complex how?" the Emperor asked, studying reports that made no sense. Imperial officers were requesting permission to attend human cooking classes. Military engineers wanted to implement human coffee brewing technology on Imperial ships. Medical staff were asking for supplies to start wellness programs. "Well, Your Majesty, they appear to be transforming our military into some kind of cultural exchange program." Emperor Thalnash made a decision that surprised everyone. "I will handle this myself." 3 days later, the massive Imperial throne ship emerged from hyperspace. It was twice the size of any other vessel in the fleet, covered in gold decorations and weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Emperor's elite guards surrounded it in perfect formation. Emperor Thalnash expected to find his officers held prisoner or under some kind of alien mind control. Instead, he found them teaching humans to fly Imperial fighters while learning something called line dancing. Admiral Zexthor was in the Liberty's kitchen with Tony Valdez, both wearing aprons that said "Galaxy's Best Cook," while they discussed barbecue techniques. "The secret," Tony was explaining, "is low heat and patience. You can't rush good barbecue." "Fascinating," Admiral Zexthor replied, carefully turning meat on a small grill they had built in the ship's cargo bay. "This is much more complex than our standard food preparation." Chancellor Morven was in Dr. Martinez's medical office, wearing a coffee mug that said "World's Best Boss," and getting his blood pressure checked. "Your stress levels are much lower than when you arrived," Dr. Martinez observed. "I think the combination of regular exercise, social interaction, and reduced caffeine intake is really helping." "I feel better than I have in years," Chancellor Morven admitted, "though I still don't understand how this coffee drink is supposed to give energy while you're telling me to drink less of it." Even the stern military attaché Graxtel was in the Liberty's engineering section, helping Tony reverse engineer Imperial hyperdrive technology while explaining Cytherian mathematics. Emperor Thalnash watched this scene through the viewscreen of his throne ship. His most trusted officers were wearing human clothing, eating human food, and appearing to enjoy themselves more than they had in decades of Imperial service. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded over the communication channel. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen, smiling cheerfully. "Oh, hello there. You must be the Emperor that everyone's been talking about. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. We've been having a wonderful time getting to know your people." "My people are supposed to be conquering you." "Really?" "They've been great. Teachers." Admiral Zexthor makes excellent barbecue, and Tony has learned more about space travel in the past week than in his entire engineering career. "Would you like to come over for dinner? We're having a potluck tonight." Emperor Thalnash stared at the human captain. "A potluck?" "It's where everyone brings a dish to share. Your Chancellor is making something called Cytherian spice bread, and Dr. Martinez is teaching everyone to make tacos. You should join us." The Emperor had commanded respect from countless species through fear, power, and military might. But Jake Morrison was inviting him to dinner like he was a neighbor who had just moved in next door. "I do not attend dinner parties," Emperor Thalnash said firmly. "I am here to resolve this situation through proper Imperial protocol." "Okay," Jake said agreeably. "What kind of protocol did you have in mind?" Single combat. I challenge you to honorable battle according to ancient imperial tradition. When I defeat you, your people will surrender. Jake thought about this for a moment. Sure, I accept your challenge. But can we do it Earth-style instead of Imperial-style? What does Earth-style combat involve? Well, our most honored combat tradition is poker. It's a card game where you try to figure out what your opponent is thinking while managing risk and probability. Very strategic. Emperor Thalnash had expected sword fighting or hand-to-hand combat. You want to settle this with a card game? Trust me, it's more challenging than it sounds. Plus, if we're going to have a contest, we might as well make it fun for everyone else, too. The Emperor found himself agreeing to something he didn't quite understand, which seemed to be a common experience when dealing with humans. 2 hours later, Emperor Thalnash sat at a table in the Liberty's main meeting room, surrounded by his officers and the human crew. Jake had explained the rules of poker, and Amy had provided translation for the more complex concepts. So the goal is to get the best combination of cards, but also to convince your opponent that you have better cards than you actually do? The Emperor asked. Exactly. It's all about reading people and managing risk. Sometimes the person with the worst cards can win if they're good at bluffing. The game began simply enough. But Emperor Thalnash quickly became fascinated by the psychological aspects of poker. Here was a form of combat that required intelligence, observation, and strategic thinking rather than just force. This is remarkable, he said, studying his cards. You must analyze probability, observe behavior, and make decisions with incomplete information. Plus, you have to manage your resources and know when to take risks, Jake added, raising the bet. As the game continued, Emperor Thalnash found himself enjoying the challenge more than any military campaign he could remember. The humans had created a form of competition that was intellectually stimulating without requiring anyone to actually get hurt. By the end of the evening, Emperor Thalnash had lost his ceremonial crown jewels, 3-star systems, and his ancestral sword to Jake Morrison in various poker hands. But instead of being angry, he was completely fascinated by the complexity of human psychology. Your species is remarkable, he told Jake as the game ended. You've taught me more about strategy and risk assessment in one evening than my advisors have in centuries. Want to play again tomorrow? Jake asked. I could teach you Texas Hold'em. That's even more fun. Emperor Thalnash looked around the room. His officers were laughing with human crew members, sharing stories and comparing notes about their different cultures. Admiral Zexthor was planning a barbecue competition between imperial and human cooking techniques. Chancellor Morven was discussing stress management with Dr. Martinez. Even his elite guards were learning card tricks from Amy Chen. Captain Morrison, the Emperor said slowly, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Instead of conquering your species, what? Would you say to an alliance? A partnership between the Empire and humanity based on continued cultural exchange and regular poker nights? Jake grinned and shook the Emperor's hand. Your Majesty, I think that's the best deal anyone's ever offered humanity. 6 months later, the combined human Imperial fleet approached Earth. The Imperial ships were decorated with welcome banners made by enthusiastic human crew members. Admiral Zexthor had become the galaxy's foremost expert on barbecue techniques. Dr. Martinez had established the galaxy's first interdisciplinary medical journal, with articles contributed by doctors from dozens of species. Emperor Thalnash had discovered that running an empire was much more enjoyable when it was based on friendship and cooperation rather than fear and conquest. The rigid imperial system had transformed into a flexible confederation where different species shared knowledge, culture, and the occasional poker game. As Earth appeared on the view screen, surrounded by the largest peaceful fleet in galactic history, Jake Morrison reflected on how strange life could be. Humanity had accidentally revolutionized galactic politics simply by treating everyone like potential friends rather than enemies. "Not bad for our first time meeting aliens," he said to his crew. Tony, who was now wearing an Imperial engineering badge alongside his human rank insignia, looked up from his workstation. "Think we'll find more species out there who want to be friends?" "With our track record," Jake laughed, "I think the real question is whether the galaxy is ready for more human-style diplomacy." On the Imperial Bridge, Emperor Thal Nash was learning to play a new Earth card game called Bridge, while his advisors planned the first Galactic Cultural Exchange Festival. It would feature food, music, technology demonstrations, and of course the first interspecies poker championship. The Emperor smiled as he looked at his cards. Sometimes the best victories came not from conquest, but from simply asking if anyone wanted to be friends. The reports reached Emperor Thalnash's palace on the capital world of Kythera Prime. For 3,000 years, the Empire had followed the same simple pattern: find new species, demand surrender, accept submission, integrate into empire. It had never failed. Until now. Chancellor Morven, the Emperor's most trusted advisor, read the reports with growing disbelief. "Your Majesty, I must inform you of a situation that defies all previous experience." Emperor Thalnash, who was reviewing tax reports from 17 star systems, looked up with mild interest. "What kind of situation?" "We have encountered a species that appears to be immune to our standard conquest procedures." "Immune? Are they a warrior race?" "No, Your Majesty. They appear to be a friendly race." Emperor Thalnash set down his tax reports. In 3,000 years of rule, no one had ever described an enemy as friendly during a military encounter. Chancellor Morven continued reading from his datapad. Admiral Zexthor reports that they responded to surrender demands by offering food and medical assistance. Fleet Admiral Korthnov reports that they arranged their ships into something called a smiley face and broadcast peaceful intentions in 47 languages. 47 languages, including 3 that our computers don't recognize, Your Majesty. Meanwhile, the imperial bureaucracy was experiencing something it had never faced before: paperwork that didn't make sense. The Department of Conquered Territories received forms for human integration, but instead of surrender signatures, the forms came back with recipes written in the margins. The Bureau of Imperial Compliance received reports about human cultural exchanges, but the officers kept asking for permission to continue learning human engineering techniques. Administrative. Director Yelkan had processed the conquest of 43 civilizations. She understood warrior cultures that fought with honor, scientific races that negotiated with logic, and religious societies that sought spiritual guidance. But humans seemed to operate on principles she couldn't classify. "They won't fill out the surrender forms correctly," she complained to her staff. "Instead of accepting imperial law, they keep asking if we need help with anything." Her assistant, filing specialist Nexri, held up a stack of documents. "Ma'am, they returned the territory integration papers with a note asking if we'd like to attend something called a block party on Earth." "A block party? Apparently it's a gathering where neighbors share food and meet each other's families." Director Yelkan stared at the paperwork. "They want to invite the imperial government to a neighborhood gathering?" Chancellor Morven decided to handle the situation personally. he traveled to the border systems with a diplomatic team and instructions to resolve what Imperial intelligence now called the human anomaly. He expected to find a devious enemy using sophisticated psychological tricks. Instead, he found Tony Valdez giving engineering lessons to Imperial mechanics while they all drank coffee together. The key to good engine maintenance, Tony was explaining, to a group of fascinated Catherian engineers is regular cleaning and checking all your connections. Oh, and never ignore strange noises. Strange noises always mean something. The Imperial engineers were taking notes like students in a classroom. In the medical bay, Dr. Martinez had set up what she called a wellness clinic for homesick Imperial soldiers. She had discovered that many aliens suffered from depression when they were far from home for long periods. What you need, she told a sad-looking Graxilian warrior, is more contact with your family and some vitamins that help with mood. Also, try exercising more. Physical activity helps with mental health. The warrior, who had expected to be interrogating prisoners, found himself doing stretching exercises with a human doctor who genuinely cared about his emotional well-being. Amy Chen had become incredibly popular with Imperial communication officers after she taught them Earth slang and humor. They had never encountered concepts like puns, knock-knock jokes, or sarcasm. So when someone says, break a leg, they actually mean good luck? Asked communication specialist Dorval. Exactly, Amy said. Human language is full of expressions that don't mean what they literally say. It makes conversations more fun. Lisa Parker's constant photography had an unexpected result. While documenting everything for her travel blog, she accidentally photographed Admiral Zexthor's fuel storage areas. Her pictures clearly showed that someone had been stealing Imperial fuel crystals and selling them on the black market. She showed the photos to Jake, not realizing their importance. Look at these interesting storage areas. Do you think those crystal arrangements are supposed to look uneven like that? Jake looked at the pictures and frowned. Those numbers don't match. See here? The inventory says they should have 100 crystals, but I only count 67 in your photo. When Chancellor Morven saw the evidence, he realized the humans had accidentally uncovered a corruption scandal that Imperial investigators had missed for months. You found this by accident? He asked Lisa. I just like taking pictures of everything, she said cheerfully. The patterns were interesting. Is something wrong? Chancellor Morven had spent years investigating corruption in the Imperial fleet. The humans had solved his case in 3 days by simply taking tourist photos. The situation reached a breaking point when Jake Morrison suggested solving the corruption problem with what he called a good old-fashioned barbecue and talking things, through like civilized folks. You want to resolve a criminal investigation with a cooking event? Chancellor Morven asked. Sure, Jake said. In my experience, most problems get easier to solve when everyone sits down together with good food and honest conversation. Plus, Admiral Zexthor mentioned he wanted to learn how to barbecue. Chancellor Morven looked around at the scene before him. Half his Imperial officers were learning human engineering techniques. The other half were attending Dr. Martinez's wellness sessions, and his communication staff had learned to tell jokes. The humans had accidentally solved a major crime while treating the whole thing like a friendly social gathering. Chancellor, his aide said quietly, what should we report? To the Emperor? Chancellor Morven watched Jake Morrison explaining barbecue sauce recipes to Admiral Zexthor, while Tony Valdez taught Imperial engineers how to improve their engine efficiency. Dr. Martinez was showing homesick soldiers pictures of Earth's landscapes, while Amy Chen taught communication officers to appreciate human humor. Tell His Majesty, Chancellor Morven said slowly, that we may need to completely revise our understanding of successful first contact procedures. Should we continue trying to conquer them, sir? Chancellor Morven looked at the Imperial officers, who were happily learning human culture while the humans enthusiastically studied Imperial technology. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves while actually solving problems and building friendships. I think, he said finally, that they may be conquering us instead, and I'm not entirely sure that's a bad thing. News of the strange human encounter spread through the Imperial fleet faster than a computer virus. Within a week, Fleet Admiral Korthnav received reports that made him question the sanity of his own officers. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Korthnav said to his aide. Ambassador Velnari got drunk with the humans, military attaché Graxtel is now taking human vitamins, and Admiral Zexthor has been humming something called country music? Yes, sir. The humans also gave them recipes for something called barbecue sauce. Admiral Korthnav was the Empire's most decorated military commander. He had won battles against warrior species that fought with honor, robot armies that followed logic, and energy beings that used pure strategy. But humans seemed to operate by rules he had never encountered. He brought his best tactical minds to deal with this new threat. Tactical specialist Quindar was an expert in psychological warfare. Strategic analyst Felmore could predict enemy behavior using mathematical models. Together, they commanded the largest Imperial battle fleet ever assembled for a first contact situation. This must be a sophisticated form of mental attack, Quindar explained to the fleet commanders. They confuse our people with strange rituals, then weaken their minds with alcohol and loud music. I agree, said Felmore. No species could be this chaotic by accident. This is clearly advanced psychological manipulation. Admiral Korthnav nodded. We will show them the true power of the Empire. All ships assume attack formation. Prepare for battle. 50 Imperial warships moved into a perfect diamond pattern, weapons powered and shields raised. It was a formation that had terrified countless worlds into immediate surrender. On the Liberty, Amy Chen looked at her screen with concern. Captain, we have incoming ships, lots of them. They're in what looks like an attack formation. Jake walked to the main screen and whistled. That's quite a sight. I count about 50 ships. They sure know how to make an entrance. Tony was studying the formation with his engineer's eye. Look at how precisely they're positioned. Those pilots are really skilled. I wonder if they'd teach us that formation flying technique. Should we call for backup? Lisa asked, still taking pictures. From what? Jake laughed. We're the only human ship out here. Besides, they probably just want to talk. Let's show them we're friendly. Jake had an idea. Amy, can you get all our escort ships in formation too? The Liberty had brought 3 smaller exploration ships. Within minutes, Amy had coordinated with their captains to arrange the 4 human ships into a pattern. Admiral Korthnav watched his tactical display in confusion. What formation is that supposed to be? It appears to be a circle with 2 dots. Sir, reported his sensor officer. A circle with 2 dots? What kind of military formation is that? I think it's supposed to be a face, sir. A smiling face. On the main screen, Admiral Korthnav could indeed see that the human ships had arranged themselves into a simple smiley face pattern. It was the least threatening military formation he had ever encountered. Sir, his communication officer reported, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying? They're transmitting "We Come in Peace" in 47 different languages, including 3 that our computers don't recognize. Amy had found Earth's complete linguistic database, and was broadcasting humanity's peaceful intentions in every language she could find, including some ancient Earth languages that nobody spoke anymore. But the strangest part was yet to come. Tony had convinced Jake to share human culture with the alien fleet. "Captain," Tony said excitedly, "we should show them what human civilization is like. Maybe they'll understand us better." "Great idea. What should we send them? How about some of our entertainment? TV shows, movies, that kind of thing?" Amy began transmitting Earth's television programming to the Imperial fleet. She started with what she thought were good examples of human culture: cooking shows, nature documentaries, and educational programs. But she also accidentally included reality TV shows. Admiral Korthnov and his officers watched in growing bewilderment as humans on screen voluntarily embarrassed themselves for prizes, lived in houses with cameras watching everything they did, and competed in contests that seemed designed to cause maximum drama. "They record their own humiliation?" Quindar asked, staring at a dating show where humans competed for romantic partners by doing silly challenges. "And broadcast it to their entire species?" added Fellmore, watching a show where humans ate disgusting things for money. "This makes no strategic sense," Admiral Korthnov muttered. "Why would they show us their weaknesses?" Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez had started her own communication channel with the Imperial Fleet's medical officers. She was sharing human medicine and asking about alien health problems. "I'm Dr. Helen Martinez from the Liberty," she said cheerfully. "I'd love to learn about your medical practices. Do any of your crew members suffer from space sickness? I have excellent remedies." The Imperial medical staff, who had never been contacted directly by an enemy during a military standoff, found themselves discussing stomach problems and vitamin deficiencies with a human doctor who seemed genuinely concerned about their health. Lisa had discovered that the Imperial ships had public communication channels. She began broadcasting her travel blog, complete with photos of her journey through space and reviews of different space stations. "Day 847 of our space exploration," she said cheerfully into her camera. "Today we met the most amazing alien fleet. Their ships are beautiful, and the formations they can fly are incredible. I've got some great photos to share. I give this first contact experience 5 stars so far." Tony had somehow managed to establish a direct communication link with Imperial engineers. He was discussing engine efficiency and sharing human technical manuals with officers who were supposed to be preparing for battle. "Your hyperdrive system is fascinating," Tony said to a confused Cytherian engineer. "We're still using basic fusion drives. I don't suppose you'd be willing to trade some technical data. I've got some great designs for coffee machines that might interest your crews." Admiral Korthnov sat in his command chair, surrounded by reports. That made no sense. His medical staff was discussing vitamins with the enemy. His engineers were sharing technical data with humans who offered coffee machine blueprints in return. His communication officers were watching shows where humans voluntarily made themselves look foolish. "Sir," his aide said carefully. "What are your orders?" Admiral Korthnov looked at the tactical display. The human ships were still arranged in a smiley face pattern. They were broadcasting friendship messages, sharing their entertainment, offering medical advice, and teaching engineering techniques. "I need to speak with Imperial Command," he said finally, "and request a psychiatric evaluation for my entire fleet." 3 days later, both ships met at a small space station that floated between 2 star systems. The station was old and nobody owned it, making it perfect for their meeting. Admiral Zexthor brought his best people. Ambassador Velnari wore golden robes that touched the floor and spoke in a voice that made everything sound important. Military attaché Graxtel stood straight as a metal rod and never smiled. They carried the sacred goblet of submission, a silver cup used for thousands of years when new species joined the Empire. Captain Jake arrived with his usual crew. Lisa carried a camera and took pictures of everything she saw. Tony brought a toolbox because he wanted to understand how alien technology worked. Dr. Helen Martinez carried a medical bag, ready to help anyone who felt sick. The meeting room was large and cold. Imperial banners hung from the walls, showing the symbols of conquest and power. Admiral Zexthor sat at one end of a long table, trying to look impressive. "Welcome, humans," Ambassador Velnari said in his deep voice. "We gather here to complete the ancient ritual of submission to the Galactic Empire." Jake smiled and pulled out a chair. "Thanks for meeting with us. This is exciting. We've never met aliens before. Would anyone like some coffee? We brought thermoses." Ambassador Velnari blinked his 4 eyes. "Coffee? It's a drink we make from beans. Helps you wake up and think clearly. Dr. Martinez says it's good for you in small amounts." Tony was already looking around the room with wide eyes. "Wow. Look at these control panels. Are these touch screens? How do you power all this? Do you use fusion reactors or something else?" He walked over to a glowing crystal on a pedestal and poked it with his finger. "Don't touch that," Graxtel shouted, but it was too late. The crystal began to glow brighter. Ancient Cytherian technology came to life, and suddenly everyone's thoughts appeared as pictures floating above their heads. Above Jake's head, an image showed him wondering if aliens liked hamburgers. Above Lisa's head, pictures of her excitement about posting alien photos on social media floated around. Tony's thoughts were full of engine designs and technical questions, but the alien thoughts were more embarrassing. Above Ambassador Velnari's head, everyone could see his worries about his speech and his wish that his robes didn't make him look fat. Admiral Zexathor's thoughts showed his confusion about humans and his secret enjoyment of their music. "Oh my," Dr. Martinez said, looking at the floating images. "This is fascinating. Is this normal alien technology?" "No!" Admiral Zexthor said quickly, trying to think about military tactics instead of the country song stuck in his head. Ambassador Velnari cleared his throat and lifted the sacred goblet. "Let us proceed with the ceremony. Human leader, you must drink from this goblet to show your surrender to the Empire." Jake looked at the beautiful silver cup. "Is this some kind of toast? I love traditions like this. To new friendships." He took the goblet and drank deeply. Then he passed it to Lisa. "Here, try this. It tastes like fruit juice with bubbles." Lisa drank and passed it to Tony. Tony drank and passed it to Dr. Martinez. Soon all the humans had shared the drink. Ambassador Velnari stared in shock. That was not supposed to happen. The goblet is only for the leader who surrenders. "Sorry," Jake said. "On Earth, when someone offers a drink, it's polite to share. Would you like some of our coffee in return?" Before anyone could answer, Jake pulled out a bottle of whiskey from his bag. "Actually, this might be better for a celebration. This is whiskey. It's stronger than coffee." He poured glasses for everyone. The aliens had never tasted alcohol before. Ambassador Velnari took a small sip and immediately felt dizzy. The floating thoughts above his head changed to show him wondering why the room was spinning. "This liquid affects brain function," Dr. Martinez observed, watching the aliens' reactions. "Fascinating. Your species processes alcohol differently than humans. You should probably drink water and eat something." She opened her medical bag and pulled out vitamins. "Here, take these. They'll help your body process the alcohol better And does anyone have low blood pressure? I brought my testing equipment. Graxtel, who had been trying to maintain his serious military appearance, found himself giggling at the floating pictures above everyone's heads. His own thoughts now showed cartoon images of dancing soldiers. This is not how first contact is supposed to work, Admiral Zexthor said. But his thoughts showed images of humans teaching Imperial officers to line dance. Tony had found another alien device and was examining it carefully. Hey, this looks like a communication array. Mind if I take a look at the wiring? I bet our ships could share technical data if we connected our systems. Stop touching things, Graxtel tried to say, but he was laughing too hard to sound threatening. Lisa was taking pictures of everything, including the embarrassing thought projections. This is amazing content for my blog. Do you aliens have social media? You should see how popular your thoughts are going to be online. Dr. Martinez was checking Ambassador Velnari's pulse while he sat in his chair, confused and slightly drunk. Your heart rate is elevated, but that's normal after alcohol consumption. You should drink more water. The crystal continued to project everyone's thoughts. Jake's mind showed him planning a barbecue party with aliens. Admiral Zexthor's thoughts revealed his growing curiosity about human culture, mixed with worry about what his emperor would say. Ambassador Velnari, now definitely drunk on human whiskey, started laughing at his own floating thoughts. Your species is very strange. You turn surrender ceremonies into parties. We're not surrendering, Jake said, confused. We're making friends. That's what you do when you meet new people, right? Graxtel, who was supposed to be the serious military officer, was now examining the human vitamins with great interest. His thoughts showed him wondering if they would make him stronger. The meeting that was supposed to establish human submission to the Empire had turned into an impromptu party. Dr. Martinez was giving health advice to aliens. Tony was sharing engineering knowledge. Lisa was helping drunk aliens pose for photos. Jake was planning a larger meeting with more humans and aliens. As the crystal finally powered down and the thought projections faded, Admiral Zexthor looked around the room. His ambassadors were drunk, his military officer was eating human vitamins, and the humans were treating the whole thing like a neighborhood gathering. What are we going to tell the Emperor? He asked quietly. Ambassador Velnari, still dizzy from whiskey, smiled for the first time in decades. Maybe we tell him that. Humans are the strangest species in the galaxy, and that strange might be exactly what the Empire needs. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, staring at the biggest ship he had ever seen. The alien vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship, with sharp edges and dark metal that seemed to eat light. Red lights blinked along its sides like angry eyes. Well, that's not something you see every day, Jake said, scratching his beard. He had been exploring space for 10 years, but this was his first time meeting aliens. Lisa Parker, the ship's navigator, pointed at her screen. Captain, I'm getting signals from that ship. Lots of them. Amy Chen looked up from her communication station. Her fingers danced over the controls as strange sounds filled the bridge. Sir, they're trying to talk to us. The computer is working on translation. Tony Valdez, the chief engineer, whistled low. Look at the size of that thing. I wonder what kind of engines they use. Must be something special to move all that metal. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they could see inside the alien ship. A tall creature with purple skin and 4 arms stood in what looked like a command center. Gold decorations covered his chest, and his eyes glowed yellow. When he spoke, his voice was deep and serious. Unknown vessel, I am Admiral Zexthor of the Galactic Empire. You have entered Imperial space without permission. Prepare to surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority. Jake blinked. Well, he gets right to the point, doesn't he? He looked around at his crew. Amy, can you send a message back? Yes, sir. Ready when you are. Jake straightened his uniform and smiled at the screen. Hello there, Admiral. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Liberty. Nice to meet you. Sorry about the space thing. We're new to this whole galactic travel business. Can we help you with anything? On the alien ship, Admiral Zexthor stared at his screen. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion. In 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, no species had ever responded to a surrender demand by asking if they could help. Did the translation work correctly? He asked his communication officer. Yes, Admiral. The human said he was sorry and asked if he could help us. Help us? We are demanding their surrender. Back on the Liberty, Tony had an idea. Captain, should we show them we're friendly? Maybe play some music? Great thinking, Tony. Amy, can you send them some of our music? Something that shows we're peaceful. Amy's fingers flew over her controls. What kind of music, sir? How about that welcome playlist we made? The one with all the good Earth songs. Within seconds, the Imperial ship was filled with sounds unlike anything they had ever heard. First came an old rock song with guitars and drums, then a country song about trucks and dogs. Admiral Zexthor jumped when a song started with people shouting, "Hey Macarena!" What is this noise? Admiral Zexthor demanded. I think it's their music, sir, his communication officer said, trying not to dance to the beat. On the Liberty, Jake was feeling proud of his diplomatic skills. Amy, send them another message. Tell them we'd love to have them over for dinner. Maybe they're hungry after all that space travel. The message reached Admiral Zexthor just as a song about dancing under moonlight was playing. They want to feed us? He asked his officers. That's what the message says, sir. They're inviting us to something called a barbecue. A barbecue? Is this some kind of human weapon? Meanwhile, Dr. Helen Martinez had arrived on the bridge. She was the ship's doctor and always worried about everyone's health. Captain, if we're meeting aliens, shouldn't we check if they need medical attention? Space travel can be hard on the body. Good point, Helen. Amy, ask if any of them need to see a doctor. Tell them we have excellent medical care. Admiral Zexthor received this message while a song about friendship was playing. His command staff looked at each other in confusion. They want to examine our bodies? Asked his tactical officer. And feed us? Added the communication officer. While playing this strange music, finished the navigation officer. Admiral Zexthor had conquered 47 star systems. He had faced warrior races, robot armies, and energy beings. But he had never encountered anything like humans who responded to military threats with dinner, invitations, and medical checkups. Tony was examining the readings from the alien ship on his tablet. Captain, look at this energy signature. Their engines are amazing. I wonder if they'd let me take a look. I bet we could learn a lot from each other. Great idea, Tony. Amy, ask if their engineer would like to exchange technical information. Tell them we're always eager to learn new things. This message was the final straw for Admiral Zexthor. They want to share technology without conquest, without surrender? What kind of species are these humans? His officers had no answer. In the background, a cheerful song about making new friends played on. Jake looked at his crew and smiled. I think this is going well. They haven't shot at us yet, and we're making cultural contact. Amy, ask them if they'd like to meet in person. Maybe we can find a nice place to talk. Admiral Zexthor stared at the latest message. These humans wanted to meet face to face, not to surrender, not to negotiate terms of defeat. They seemed to genuinely want to have a conversation. "Sir," his communication officer said carefully, "what should we tell them?" Admiral Zexthor looked at his crew. They were all listening to human music now, some of them tapping their feet to the rhythm. "Tell them we will consider their request, and turn off that music before we all start dancing." But it was too late. The damage was done. For the first time in Imperial history, a first contact had gone completely wrong. Or maybe, Admiral Zexthor thought as he found himself humming along to a song about friendship, it had gone completely right.